So today we are going to talk about making pate with wild ducks and geese. And this is what we're going to end up with right here. This is a canning jar with pate in it. And I'll hold it up a little bit closer so you can see it. Now, first, a little bit of background about pate. Most people, pate isn't a big thing in the U.S. It's much bigger in Europe, but it's very, very good. Pate has a little bit of a sketchy reputation because most people think it's all liver, and a lot of people don't like liver. So let's dispel that. The first fact is there is liver in it, but it's a very small amount. It's for adding some flavor. And if you did a blind taste test with people and gave them some pate and some hamburger and stuff, they wouldn't know that they wouldn't tell you that there was liver in the pate. So don't worry about that.
What kind of livers do you use?
I use depends. I'll use pheasant livers, duck liver, goose liver, or chicken liver, depending on what I have. As I get into making pate, our own pate, because we hunt a lot in the fall. We hunt pheasant, we hunt ducks and geese, and so it's a great thing to do with duck and geese meat.
How is pate normally eaten or served?
You serve it. It's rich, so you don't eat it like a main course for your meal. It's more of an hors d'oeuvre. You typically eat it small slices of it on crackers or on toast, something like that. To give you a little more idea about what pate is, it's basically it's kind of like a meatloaf, if you know what that is, but it's got much better stuff in it than meatloaf. It's got the duck meat or the goose meat or both. It's got some pork fat, some bacon. It's got lots of spices. So let's cut to the chase here, and we'll go over the ingredients for you. Later on, I'll hold up in front of the camera the actual list with the amounts of each that you're going to use, or that we're going to use when we make the pate. But what we're talking about today is we're going to make an amount of pate which is enough to fill this kind of deep dish, baking dish. So the pate would fill this whole thing up and stick up a little bit over the top. When you make pate, you can bake it in something like this, or what I do is I put it into these canning jars and cook the canning jars in boiling water for 2.5 hours. If you go this route, you're going to bake it for 2.5 hours in an oven. The advantage of the canning jars is you have smaller amounts, so the pate that will fill probably 4 of these canning jars. So we can open them one at a time. It keeps up indefinitely in these jars, so we can open one at a time and not have to waste what we don't eat. With this, once you start eating it, you kind of have to finish it within a few days because it doesn't freeze well, and if you leave it too long after a week, I don't think it's safe to eat it. So, like any kind of meat. All right. So let's talk about the ingredients. First, we have the different kinds of meat. This is the breast from a black duck that I shot last December 2019. I vacuum packed it and froze it. So that's going to be in there. Here's some chicken livers. Okay, I would normally use the duck livers or the goose livers, but I used those all up already this year, so I'm using chicken livers. Here we have pork shoulder. That's you can see that it's pork shoulder. We use that. These are pork trimmings. A lot of fat and some lean as well. And over here we have pork. We have salt pork, cured salt pork. And if you use salt pork, that's fine, but you do want to rinse it several times with fresh water to rinse off the salt, because it would be too salty if you didn't.
So why are we getting salt pork in the first place then?
Sometimes they don't have the pork trimmings.
Oh.
So we have both now. Okay, let's keep going. Starting from the left, this is Cointreau brandy. That goes into the pate. It gives it it's an orange brandy, and it's a really important taste component of this pate. It makes it really good. I prefer Cointreau, but you can also use Grand Marnier, which is a similar competing orange brandy.
So you don't use both of these?
I don't use both.
Okay,
No,
so
I
it's
use
one or the other.
Yeah. If you don't have Cointreau, you can use Grand Marnier, or if you prefer Grand Marnier, use that. Tricolored peppers. There's lots of pepper in pate. So we have tricolored peppers, we have green peppers. Those were given to me by my nephew from Israel. We have black peppercorns. We have Madagascar peppers. These, my sister-in-law gave us these from Madagascar. They have a unique taste, quite very interesting, and it adds to the flavor of the pate. We also use paprika. This is a type of paprika that again came from Israel, and it's mixed with a little bit of olive oil. Bay leaves. These are Turkish bay leaves, and we use those. We have olive oil. With olive oil, don't chintz out on the olive oil. What I've found is if you spend at least $1, get olive oil that costs at least $1 an ounce, then it'll taste good. Below that, it may not. This is sea salt, or otherwise known as kosher salt. That's very important. The recipe calls for a certain amount of kosher salt. Do not substitute regular iodized salt. That is 3 times more salty, and if you use the iodized salt in the same proportion that the recipe calls for this, you would ruin the pate. Garlic, of course. We have cloves. And we have cinnamon.
Ground ginger.
Oh, yeah, ground ginger. Nutmeg. And finally, pistachios. So, as you can see, there's lots of great ingredients going into this pate. Oh, yeah, we forgot the other. We have thyme, fresh thyme, and fresh rosemary. So, as you can see, there's lots of good ingredients going into our pate. Now, making a pate is kind of not for the faint of heart. It's a 2-step process. Step 1 is you prepare the pork, grind it up, mix it with the pureed livers, and set that aside. Then you cut up the goose and duck into little cubes. You spice that with olive oil, bay leaves, and things like that, which we're going to show you. And then those 2 things, after you do those 2 things, both those batches separately go into the fridge, covered over, and they marinate for 3 days. Okay? Then, after those 3 days, you bring them back, you mix them all together, you add some more spices, and then put it into your containers, and then cook it. So it's phase 1 and phase 2.